Imagine stepping onto your very own plot of land. Crystal clear skies overhead, maybe the scent of fresh ocean air, and just the absolute thrill of building your dream home from the ground up in beautiful Portugal. Sounds idyllic, right? But before you start picking out tile samples, there's a whole world of practicalities to navigate. So for this deep dive, we've taken your sources, articles, research, your own notes, everything, and really tried to cut through all the noise to get to the most important nuggets of knowledge you need. Our mission today is pretty simple: to shortcut you to being truly well-informed about the real costs and crucial considerations of building a house in Portugal, specifically looking ahead to 2025. We want to go beyond just the headline numbers, give you a clear, actionable picture. And we're going to unpack some surprising facts, some really crucial dynamics, like the dramatic regional variations. I mean, these can literally save or cost you hundreds of thousands of euros. And the unexpected factor is really driving prices right now. Okay, let's dig in. So let's start with the big picture right off the bat. What we found in the research is that building a house in Portugal in 2025, well, it can cost you anywhere from, say, 1,314 right up to 3,500 per square meter. That's a huge range, almost bewildering, really, before we even get into specifics.
It absolutely is a wide range, yeah. And the crucial context here is that construction costs have actually risen significantly. We're talking 30% over just the past 3 years. So, to put that into a tangible example for you, think about a standard 200 square meter family home. The pure construction costs, and this is before you even think about buying the land, is going to land somewhere between 262,800 and 700,000. And that variance really depends heavily on, your chosen location and the specs you're aiming for.
Wow, okay. So that's already a pretty hefty sum just for the build itself. But looking at those big initial numbers, what's the first thing people commonly misjudge when they start budgeting?
That's where it gets really interesting, because the data clearly shows a common pitfall. Many expats, maybe people like you listening, seriously underestimate the total investment. They focus maybe too much on those initial construction quotes, right? But our research clearly indicates that additional expenses can easily add another 30, even 45% to that final bill.
30 to 45%.
Yeah, it's significant. And this isn't just a little extra cost. This is often where those dreams can sort of crumble if it's not accounted for right from the start.
Okay, that's a huge percentage to miss. What's driving that kind of increase right now? Is it like the cost of materials just skyrocketing?
Well, what's fascinating here is the unusual dynamic playing out in the market right now. While material prices have actually seen a slight decrease, only about 0.3%, but still down, not up, labor costs have surged. They're increasing by about 8.1% annually. And this shift is profound. Labor now represents a massive 60 to 70% of total construction costs.
The 60 to 70%?
Yeah. Historically, that figure was closer to maybe 45 to 50%. So it's a really significant rebalancing of where the money goes in the budget. People are the biggest expense now.
That shift to 60, 70% labor cost is, profound is the right word. So if labor is truly the dominant factor, what's really driving that number up? Is it just pay increases, or are there deeper structural issues in the Portuguese construction sector we should, understand?
Oh, it's definitely structural. Your materials point to a chronic shortage. An astonishing 70,000 workers are needed in Portugal's construction sector right now. And it isn't just about wages, although they are certainly up. You've got this dynamic of an aging workforce, lots of experienced craftspeople retiring, but not enough replacements coming through. At the same time, younger Portuguese workers are, increasingly pursuing higher education or maybe emigrating for better opportunities elsewhere in Europe. And unfortunately, the vocational training programs just aren't keeping pace with demand, especially for those highly specialized trades like, traditional stonemasons or those amazing tile setters Portugal's famous for.
That makes a lot of sense. So with such a critical shortage, what does that actually look like on the ground in terms of pay? Can you give us some concrete examples of those wage variations across the country?
Sure. So for general construction workers, if you're in Lisbon, you might be looking at around 12 to 15 euros per hour. But head into the interior regions, and it could be a bit less, maybe 9 to 11 euros per hour typically. Right. But here's where it really bites: the skilled trades. Master electricians, for instance, they're commanding 20 to 25 per hour. Experienced tile setters, they can charge upwards of 30 euro per hour.
Wow.
And crucially, these rates have jumped 15 to 20% just since 2023. The consequence of the shortage on your project is pretty clear. Timelines are getting stretched out, often by 30 to 40% longer than initially planned. And, there can be genuine quality concerns if less experienced workers are filling those critical gaps.
Right. Okay, so we've seen how these surging labor costs are pushing the overall build price up significantly. But what if there was a way to potentially save, well, hundreds of thousands, potentially, on that final bill, just by making one key decision early on? Your sources reveal that your chosen location can dramatically impact your bottom line. What's the kind of differential our research uncovered?
This is where strategic thinking really, really pays off. Lisbon, as you might expect, commands the highest prices. You're looking at 2,700 to 3,200 peso per square meter for standard construction, maybe even up to 3,500 for premium builds. Porto follows pretty closely, around 2,000 to 2,800 per square meter. And then there's the Algarve, obviously a premier tourist destination, so costs there run from about 2,200 up to over 3,500 per square meter. And for luxury builds, say in areas like Quinta do Lago, you could easily exceed 4,000 euros a square meter.
4,000 euros. Goodness.
Yeah. And why so high? Well, it's high demand, obviously limited space, and a concentration of skilled workers in those areas. Those are the primary drivers. So if your dream includes the Algarve, that's the first number to grapple with, and it fundamentally changes your approach compared to, say, building somewhere like the Alentejo.
That's quite a jump indeed. So, okay, if those are the high-cost areas, what about the other end of the spectrum? Where can your money go much, much further, and what makes those regions more affordable?
All right, so the interior regions offer exceptional value, and that's mainly because of lower land costs, less competition for labor, and often simpler logistics. The Alentejo, for instance, you're seeing costs from around 1,314 up to maybe 1,800 euro per square meter. Much different.
Big difference.
Huge. The central region is around 1,400 to 2,000 euro. The northern interior, 1,350 to 9,000 euro. Even the Silver Coast, which gives you that coastal access people often want, comes in at a more manageable 1,800 to 2,400 per square meter. And to give you that striding example again, a 200 square meter house costs maybe 640,000 to build in Lisbon, but in the Alentejo, it might cost just 360,000.
Wow.
That's a saving of 280,000 for essentially the same house materials-wise.
That's incredible.
It really highlights the regional disparity. And another factor to consider, beyond just the square meter cost, is the nature of the build itself. Urban construction often faces challenges, right? Restricted access, parking issues, noise regulations. These can easily extend timelines by 20 or 30%. In contrast, rural areas might have their own challenges, like getting utility connections sorted or transporting materials, which needs a different kind of logistical planning.
Fascinating. So, okay, beyond location, the actual construction method you choose also significantly impacts both costs and timelines. Your materials mentioned traditional Portuguese construction, stone masonry, clay tiles can range from about 800 to 1,500 pounds per square meter. But you also noted it's getting harder to find the skilled craftspeople for those techniques. Does that mean modern methods are just always the go-to now?
Not necessarily always, but they certainly offer different advantages, and availability is key. For modern techniques, concrete block construction is probably the most common method in Portugal. It costs between 1,200 euro and 2,500 per square meter. It's generally faster than traditional methods. It has good thermal mass properties, which means it helps keep the house cool in summer and warm in winter naturally. And crucially, the materials and workers are widely available.
Right.
Then you've got prefabricated or modular homes. The sources highlight these as being particularly cost-effective, around 800 to 1,200 euro per square meter. These can significantly cut down construction time from maybe 12, 18 months for traditional down to just 6, 10 months. Plus, you get factory quality control, and they produce about 50% less construction waste.
That's big.
It is. And just to give you a concrete number, a 150 square meter prefab house might cost somewhere between 155,800 euro and 193,930, fully complete. Then there's steel frame construction. That's priced around 1,100 to 2,000 euro per square meter. Excellent for really modern architectural designs. It's earthquake resistant, offers faster assembly, but it does require specialized crews, which loops back to the labor issue.
Okay, lots of options there. And what about building green? Your sources talk about eco-friendly options, noting they typically add, say, 15–30% to the base costs, but obviously they offer long-term benefits. Are these becoming more common in Portugal, and what are some good examples?
Yes, they're definitely gaining traction, especially with the new NZEB energy standards we'll touch on. For example, building to the passive house standard, well, it can range from 1,500 to 300 to 3,000 to 500 per square meter, so it's a significant upfront cost. But that investment drastically reduces your heating and cooling needs later on. Using cork insulation, a fantastic local Portuguese material, adds maybe 20 to 30 euro per square meter, but gives you excellent thermal performance. Solar integration, putting panels on the roof for residential systems is typically 5,000 to 15,000 euro. It offers significant long-term energy savings, obviously. And then there's rainwater harvesting. Installation costs there range from about 3,000 to 8,000. So yeah, these upfront investments can clearly pay off over the long term in energy savings and potentially higher resale value too.
Now, let's talk about something that can often feel like either a major hurdle or, hopefully now, a smoother process: permits. Your materials highlight a major recent development: the Urban Simplex reform. That's Decree Law 1A 2024, effective March 2024. And this has apparently completely transformed Portugal's construction permit landscape. It's described in the sources as a revolutionary change. Can you explain how revolutionary it really is for someone listening who's looking to build?
It truly is a bit of a game changer, yes. This new system offers several key benefits, all designed to slash bureaucracy, which was a major headache before. Essentially, it replaced the old, lengthy, traditional building permits with simple payment receipts for many steps. And it introduced automatic approval timelines. So for projects under 300 square meters, you now get what's called tacit approval, basically automatic approval within 120 days if the authorities don't respond.
Right.
For larger projects, there's a 150 to 200-day approval window. And crucially, municipalities now cannot request documentation beyond what's legally required by the central government. And the processes are standardized across all 308 Portuguese municipalities. This really should streamline things and remove a lot of that historical uncertainty and delay.
That does sound like a huge step forward, simplifying what used to be notoriously complex. But, with such a revolutionary change, are there any maybe unintended consequences or new complexities people should be aware of, even with costs?
Well, while it's simpler, it's certainly not free. Municipal fees, those still remain, typically at 3 to 5% of your total construction budget. So for a 300,000 construction project, you could still expect permit fees between 9,000 and 15,000.
Okay.
There are also other mandatory costs you need to factor in. An energy performance certificate, or EPC, which is relatively small, around 28 to 65. Technical project approval, that can cost 2,000 euros to 5,000 euro. A construction site license, maybe $500 to $1,500, and an occupancy permit at the end, 300 to 800 day. But here's something really vital to know. Under the new rules, all new buildings must meet the Nearly Zero Energy Building, or NZE, standards.
NZEB.
Yes, NZE. Non-compliance penalties can be severe, ranging from 250 euro right up to over $44,000. So proper planning and making sure your build adheres to these energy standards is absolutely essential right from the very beginning.
Okay, good point. Now, this next section is really critical for you, our listener, because it's all about those infamous hidden costs, the ones that typically add that 30–45% to the initial construction quotes we talked about earlier. This isn't just an estimate. It's where budgets really tend to get derailed. Let's unpack this for you. What are the biggest surprises people should brace for?
Right. These are the expenses that constantly catch people off guard, mainly because they're not usually included in that initial per square meter quote from the builder. You can think of it as maybe 3 big buckets of costs. First, just getting the land ready before construction even starts. That includes things like topographical surveys, soil testing, really important land clearing, maybe building temporary access roads if it's a rural site, and putting up site security fencing. These aren't minor things. Your sources show this initial site prep could easily add 10,000 to 20,000 euro before a single brick is even laid.
Okay, that's bucket 1. What's next?
Bucket 2 is connecting to utilities. And this can be a huge, often unforeseen expense, especially in rural areas. Electricity connection might cost around €1,000 per 100 meters of cable needed from the nearest connection point. So imagine your dream plot is deep in the countryside. That last mile connection could run you upwards of €10,000 just for electricity.
Ouch.
Yeah. Water supply. Municipal connections are maybe 2,000 to 5,000, but if you need a well or a borehole, especially common in rural areas without municipal water, that could add 5,000 to 15,000 euro. Sewage systems. If you're not on the mains, you'll need a septic tank or a small treatment plant. That's typically 3,000 to 8,000 euro. And even telecommunications. Getting that fast fiber optic internet can be 500 to 2,000 depending on how far the connection needs to run.
Right, these add up fast. What's the third bucket?
And the third bucket is quality upgrades and finishes. Now, a basic level of finishes is usually included in the initial quotes, but let's be honest, most people want to upgrade at least a few key elements. And doing that can very quickly add 50,000, even 100,000 or more to a medium-sized home. For instance, a builder's basic kitchen might be budgeted at €5,000. But a premium one with nice appliances and countertops,
Yeah.
easily 25,000 plus.
Mhm.
Basic bathrooms might be €2,000 each versus luxury fittings pushing towards €8,000 per flooring. Basic ceramic tiles might be €25 per square meter installed. But if you want natural stone, you're looking at 80 or €250 per square meter. Windows, basic aluminum frames around €200 per square meter compared to high-performance energy-efficient ones at €400 to €600 per square meter. These choices, these upgrades, they add up incredibly quickly.
That is a huge chunk of money that can really sneak up on you if you're not meticulously prepared. So, okay, given all these complexities, all these potential hitter costs, this raises a really important question. How crucial is professional support in navigating this whole process successfully? Does hiring architects, project managers, does it really pay for itself in the end?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. I'd say, especially for international clients who might not know the local system inside out. Architect fees, for starters, are actually required by law in Portugal for new builds. They typically range from 5 to 8% of the construction cost for basic design services, or maybe 10 to 15% for full service, which includes project management oversight. For really renowned architects, it could even be 15 to 20%. So let's take that 400,000 construction project example again. Architectural fees could range from 20,000 up to 60,000 or more, but this is your investment in proper planning, design, and ensuring legal compliance.
Okay, so the architect is legally required. What about project managers specifically?
Project management, I'd argue, is also crucial, particularly for expats who might be managing the build from afar. It typically costs around 10 to 15% of the construction budget. So for that 200 square meter house example, maybe $40,000 to $60,000 for project management. But what do you get for that? You get coordination of all the contractors, vital quality control checks, timeline management, budget oversight. Honestly, good project management often pays for itself by preventing costly mistakes, avoiding delays, and ensuring your vision is actually realized correctly on site.
That makes sense. Are there other key professionals?
Definitely. Other professional services that add real value include a structural engineer that might be 3,000 to €8,000, separate electrical and plumbing design specialists, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 each. A landscape architect, if you want proper garden design, could be 5,000 to €15,000. An interior designer often charges 10 to 15% of your furniture and finishing budget. And don't forget legal services for reviewing contracts and potentially handling any disputes, maybe 2,000 to €5,000. And one last point here. Bilingual professionals. While they might command a 10 to 20% premium on their fees, they are often invaluable for international clients. They bridge those communication gaps, understand the cultural nuances, and make the whole process smoother.
Okay, so armed with all this knowledge now about costs, the labor market, permits, hidden expenses, professional help, what are the really smart strategies for you, the listener, to navigate building in Portugal successfully? How do you turn this dream into a reality without falling into those nightmare scenarios we hear about?
Right, let's get practical. First, pre-construction planning is paramount. Don't just look at a plot online. Visit potential sites in different seasons. You know, a property easily accessible in sunny July might be a muddy mess to get to in rainy January. Understand the local restrictions. Some municipalities have very strict architectural guidelines about style or materials. Verify utility availability before you buy, especially in rural areas. Don't just assume connection is easy or cheap. And thoroughly research your contractors. Check the IMPIC database, that's Portugal's official registry for licensed construction professionals, and always request and check references from previous clients.
Good advice. What about managing the money side?
For financial strategies, the absolute golden rule: always budget a 15 to 20% contingency fund for unexpected issues. This is your safety net. Things will come up. Tie payments to completed milestones verified by you or your project manager. Never, ever pay large amounts up front that puts all the risk on you. If you're transferring funds internationally, consider currency hedging options to protect against exchange rate fluctuations, which can significantly impact your budget. And maintain a separate, dedicated bank account just for the project. It makes tracking expenses and accounting so much simpler.
And what are the most common pitfalls people should actively try to avoid?
Okay, common pitfalls. Number 1. Hiring unlicensed contractors just because they seem cheaper. It almost always leads to problems, legal issues, poor quality work, and basically no recourse if things go wrong. Number 2, ignoring energy efficiency, thinking it saves money up front. It really doesn't in the long run. You'll pay much more on energy bills. Plus, it affects resale value now with the NZEB standards. Number 3, underestimating timelines. Be realistic. Portuguese construction rarely finishes exactly on the initial schedule. Build in buffer time mentally and financially. And definitely don't skip those professional surveys, especially the topographical and boundary surveys. Spending $1,500 on a survey can genuinely prevent a $50,000 boundary dispute later on. It's a small cost for huge peace of mind.
That boundary dispute example really hits home. How can people maximize the value of their build?
To maximize value, think strategically. Choose regions with planned infrastructure improvements, new roads, better services, as these areas are likely to see better appreciation potential for your property. Consider incorporating rental potential into your design, even if it's just a small apartment or annex. It gives you future income flexibility. Focus heavily on that energy efficiency we mentioned. It reduces your operating costs significantly and increases resale value. And finally, document everything. Keep meticulous records of contracts, payments, plans, permits, warranties. This simplifies any future sale, helps with tax matters, and just gives you a clear paper trail of your entire investment.
It's incredibly practical, really actionable advice. Just before we wrap up, your sources also touched on some frequently asked questions that many listeners are probably wondering about right now. So let's hit a few of those quickly. How long does it typically take to actually build the house once you've broken ground and got the permits?
Right. So for traditional brick and mortar construction, you're typically looking at 12 to 18 months from the start of building work. Prefabricated homes, as we said, can significantly reduce that down to maybe 6 to 10 months. But remember, you need to add the permit acquisition time onto that, although the Urban Simplex reforms have hopefully shortened those approval times significantly, down to as little as 120 days for smaller projects if all goes smoothly.
Okay. And a big one for our international listeners. Can foreigners actually build houses in Portugal? Is it straightforward?
Yes. Absolutely. Foreigners have the exact same property rights as Portuguese citizens when it comes to buying land and building. You'll need a Portuguese tax number, which is called a NIF, Número de Identificação Fiscal. And it's highly beneficial, almost essential really, to open a Portuguese bank account for making payments, managing funds, and sometimes just for proof of funds during the process.
Got it. Is construction insurance mandatory during the build itself?
It is indeed, yes. It's called seguro de construção. It typically costs around 0.5 to 1% of the total project value. And it covers things like accidents on site, damage to materials, and third-party liability during the construction phase. Additionally, it's important to note that builders are legally required to provide warranties after completion. Typically a 5-year warranty on structural elements and a 2-year warranty on finishes and fittings.
Good to know about the warranties. And finally, how do all these costs we've been talking about stack up against other EU countries? Are you still getting good value for money building in Portugal in 2025?
Portugal remains quite competitive, especially within Western Europe. Construction costs are generally thought to be 20 to 30% lower than in places like France or Germany. They're probably roughly similar to Spain now, maybe slightly lower depending on the region, but still significantly, maybe 40 to 50% higher than building in most Eastern European countries. So overall, the combination of EU building standards, that wonderful climate, appealing lifestyle, and residency benefits still makes Portugal quite attractive, even with these recent price increases. You're generally getting a good balance of quality, cost, and lifestyle benefits.
Okay, so to kind of summarize everything we've uncovered in this deep dive, building your dream home in Portugal in 2025. Well, presents both really exciting opportunities, but also some significant challenges. These are primarily due to those rising labor costs and those often overlooked hidden expenses that can really bite. But making strategic choices about your location, the construction methods you select, and ensuring you have that critical professional support network can really yield excellent value for your investment.
Exactly. I think success truly requires that comprehensive budgeting up front and a really thorough understanding of Portugal's unique construction dynamics right now. And while those urban simplex reforms have definitely simplified the permitting process on paper, having local expertise and undertaking careful, detailed planning remain absolutely crucial to navigating the entire build successfully from start to finish. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really means viewing your build not just as fulfilling a lifestyle dream, but as a significant strategic investment that needs careful management.
Absolutely. Well said. Building your dream home is always so much more than just square meters and euros, isn't it? It's really about navigating a complex system, especially as an outsider. So the question for you is, How will you apply these insights to turn your Portuguese dream home into a strategic, successful, and hopefully stress-minimized reality?